ground. Now this one isn't it, like for instance, this one I had higher, but this is a bunch of them that I'll probably separate even to show you guys how to do that piece of it. But this probably in the ground was probably the stock here was probably this stock. That way, when you come in and dig them up, they're fairly easy to break. So when you're digging them up, I go all the way around. I use a fork and loosen the soil best I can, and then finally one spot I'll stick the fork in, lift them with the fork so they come up, and I grab that stalk and pull them out.
What happens if you break them?
One or two is going to break anyway. I have. Oh, just a second. I have this. I'm a complete nerd. So I have sacks of different dahlias with sacks of each variety that I grow, and have a number of and this is the number of dahlias of tubers that I pulled from each one of them. It's probably an average of, I'd say, 6 or 7 or 8. But I had one of them last year was 24 tubers attached to the one that was planted.
Wow.
So if that was Swan Island dahlia, if you know them, they're the really good catalog growers up the Northwest. They charge one of them that I grew last 2 years ago. That literally had over 20 tubers in there, and Swan Island was charging $20 per tuber.
Okay.
So on a plant like that, they can make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I kind of just went through kind of how to dig them up, but yes, Doug.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. How far back do you cut them before you dig them out?
Again, here's what a lot of people will do. Here's when and how to dig. First frost we had, we didn't go to frost last week. We went straight to freeze,
Yeah.
and everything that is heat sensitive died, but not what's under the ground. Just the leaves and the stalk, whatever. At that point, Doug, I cut them off at 6 or 8 inches tall. The stalk, throw it all away, throw in the trash, whatever. All the leaves because they're no good. And then a lot of people will say, wait, leave them in the ground for a week, maybe even 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a fairly recommended time frame, because what you've actually done is trick the plant into thinking I need to grow some more because it's not dead under the ground, and it will start shooting or putting up eyes where you can actually see the eyes become more visible if you leave them in the ground and wait.
Oh, that's interesting.
So then after I'm in the process of starting to dig and divide mine right now, but I'm a little early, but I have so much going on in the near future I needed to get it over with.
Yeah.
But typically about 2 weeks, Doug, after they died down, the first frost will kill them. After they died down, and cut it off. 2 weeks later, start pulling them. I have about 80.
Oh.
So I usually I try to do a few a day or whatever, just to get it moving. But I'm down to only have about 15 more to go.
Why do you wait that amount of time to dig them up after the frost?
Well, again, if you leave the tubers in the ground, and they will then start developing their eyes and maybe showing their eyes a little better. You can once you dig them up, you have the choice right then to either take them down to singles like I've done off of this one, or just store the entire tubers plant that you've dug up. Either way works on that. I take them down to singles just because they cut so much easier this time of year. If you leave them in your basement or your cool storage over the winter, by the time they're spraying, they're almost like hardwood. But the advantage of waiting that long is you'll for sure see where the eyes are.
Okay.
So there's trade-offs on both of them.
And also the other thing, if you kind of sets the tuber to get ready for winter, the skin will thicken up, but you let it sit in the ground a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
just don't wrap them up with cellophane.
You mean while they're in the ground?
No, after burn them up.
After I bring them out, I'll use a box like this or whatever, depending just how big the clump is, and just first I wash them off. Take my hose and high pressure as I can, get most of the dirt off, and then I want them to dry out. So I put them in a box in the garage for a day, or you say a day or two. But I'm finding it that if you wait 2 days, they start getting a little dried. And they kind of show their age. So I kind of do it. I've dug some this morning, for instance. Tomorrow is when I will take them down to single. I do in the spring or in the summer, right when or in the fall, right when I dig them, just because it's easier. But and then I count on, because you may or may not. The eyes are not always visible. I count on at least 50% of them being viable when it comes spring. So
That's all.
yeah, over.
I'm comparing them to amaryllis and I never lose any.
Well, there's a lot of things that will help you that can happen with these. In fact, the tubers will rot even as you're storing them in your basement once a month, I would say, or every 6 weeks at least. Pull them out, feel what you got in there, and assess. And if you got some rotted ones, pull them out real quickly, because they'll rot everything else that's in there as well. All right.
Can you move down just a bit? Because can you see on the screen that what? You
No.
can't see everything.
Okay. Well, in fact, there's about 3 processes out there. I think I described the when and how to lift them. I think we're at the I just washed them off, and now we're going to take them again. I mean, this is me. I'm going to take them from the giant cluster. Yeah, you've got some clusters in there.
Yeah.
Like there's a cluster of probably on the stem. There's probably 8 tubers in there, and that was from one that was planted in the spring. So after I get them washed down, then it's time to pull out the tools. Start to take these down to singles. This is, I don't know what you call this. There's a name for this kind of scissors, but this is just one of the best things you can ever use for dahlia cutting, because not only is it sharp, but you can actually plunge it in behind where the dahlia needs to be cut. Here's what I mean by that. On every tuber, there's 3 parts: the body, the neck, and the crown. The crown is the part that's attached actually into the stem of the dahlia itself. And if any one of those 3 is missing, it's a throwaway. There's nothing to come out of it. I was looking to see if I could see any eyes in any of these, so I can show that piece of it.
The roots. Does it have roots?
Oh,
around it?
no, in effect, those are the roots. This was the stock that I've already cut down, but the stock wasn't probably this tall when I cut it. I started trimming this one out a little bit, and you probably have some that are not touched yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Just come on down this way though, because this
for instance, usually I've coming off a lot of these tubers like this, there'll be a long extension of a root called a rat tail. I just trim all those off, but just to make it easier to get in to see.
And that cut end will just kind of dry off, or
It will dry out. Yeah. And
Do you sterilize your tools?
yes and no. I'm lazy. I start doing that, and I remember about every 5th one going, okay, stick it in the.
I get a Dixie cup and I put half bleach and half water and
Yeah.
stick it down in there in between.
That is a good thing, because these tools can then pass on. If there's any disease on one of them, they can pass on. So, but if anybody asks me, I'll tell them I do that. Whatever.
But he's being honest.
And then when you're digging up your 79th one and cutting it, you're like, no way have I doing that.
Yeah,
Well, if we do notice any virus or something wrong, either at gall or on the, we toss it. If you're a doubt that it's healthy, you don't let it get to this point.
Okay.
All right, here's one with 2 eyes on it. I'll just pass it around. You can see the 2 little eyes up there, and again, that's the crown: body, neck, crown.
So that's where the eyes are on the ground.
Only, and that's the only place they can be. So if you lost the crowns, and they're easy to cut off, they're easy just to break, it's a throwaway. There's nothing will grow out of it.
Yeah.
All right. So I pointed out this tool. Here's the other thing I use. This is for cutting the stems of the stalks. Can be pretty thick and pretty hard. So I got a more heavy duty tool. a cutter for getting into stocks, and sometimes you can just split it and find a way to get at it better. And then this is what I even use then all summer long to cut dahlias off of plants. This is just a handy little tool, very sharp, and it's so small you can get very precise with where you're cutting with this one. But in this one, I wanted to show off this version, and I highly recommend that, particularly if you start growing a lot of them, because what you can do is, I mean, it will certainly snip, but it allows you to actually plunge in to where they are. And by the way, and here's one with two eyes in it as well. And I love these little doubles because you can just throw them on the ground, and maybe you get two out of there, and you can split them in the spring. But it's easy to store these. By the way, one other thing that's good about separating them in the fall is the amount of storage space you need is much diminished, because if you have clump after clump after clump that you're doing in the spring, you better have a big room. With these, I'll show you how I do this too. I can get probably 5 or 6 bags in here, and I'll show you what I mean by bag. Once I have got a particular tuber version variety cut and ready to go, before I put them in storage, this one's Cafe LA, if anybody cares. I have this bag that has sulfur dust. It helps keep from rotting. This one I think I picked up at Lowe's. I think you can get sulfur at probably any of the better nurseries have it. And what I've done is I put some vermiculite into this bag, and I squirt some of that, and it is literally just dust. Oh, come on, here we go. That I just spray into the bag, put a few tubers in there, and coat them with sulfur. Not only
the
does
vermiculite just kind of keeps it
loose.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not only does it then help on protecting them from, it's got a really cool look to it. It turns kind of gray white. So I kind of like it just even for that. But
It's like you dusted it in powdered sugar.
yep. And so now after I cut them down to singles, I usually take them back out after I take them to singles. There's usually still some dirt attached to it, so I take them back outside, wash them down again, and then put the sulfur dust on them. And here's where it gets really nerdy. I always say I store mine in Walmart bags, which is exactly the way I do it. Nobody really believes me on it. But what you can't do is just put them in a completely tightly sealed package, because they will rot. They need some kind of air movement. They got moisture going in and out. And so this is what I use to store them. It's peat moss and vermiculite. And vermiculite again is I forgot to bring my bag or the name or the brand I have, but you can kind of see in this version of vermiculite is very small little pieces. And there's also something called perlite they kind of do the same thing, but I like vermiculite better. But so it's a mixture of peat moss with just a little bit of moisture into the peat moss. I mean, if it's too dry, you'll probably dry them out over the winter when you're storing them. But if you're wet, you'll rot them over the winter. So it is just, I always say it is damp to the touch. If anybody wants to come.
Out the bag with the sulfur, and are you shaking that sulfur off and then putting them?
Yeah, no, I know they go right into the storage just like this. I want the sulfur on there because it's supposed to be able to stop fungus and whatever. But so I have my numbers, my bags numbered. This is the way I keep track of what's what. And that's actually will become bag 26. Here is my list of everything by bag number of what it is and how many there are. The record so far seems to be lilac time with the 13. I got 3 of those with 13 of them, but that's a lot of tubers in there. And out of those clumps probably. Maybe I got 13 out of it, but I'll bet I destroyed or threw away because I didn't see an eye, or I cut off the crown, probably another 10. So there might have been 20, 25 tubers on there, but I got 13 that I think are viable. And then in the spring, we'll find out how right I was or how wrong I was, because
How do you
50 to 60, they'll grow or they won't grow.
Oh, you mean, I thought you could look at them and tell that they weren't hitting this.
Well, no, if you're separating this time of year, sometimes you'll see the eye, but a lot of times you won't. So I store them, and then in the spring, I mean, the shoot will tell you if it's good or not.
They in the plastic bag, I can't tell.
Yes, it's just a Walmart bag.
Then inside of that, you put the.
And then I have my mixture of peat moss and vermiculite. No, it's way more peat moss than vermiculite, but vermiculite kind of helps even with moisture control and so forth. So, but in fact, Mike, you probably use, I don't know what you use.
I used to use vermiculite.
Yes.
It was so fine with the dust,
Mhm.
you know, our basement grind into the cement floor. So I use a little perlite.
Yeah, perlite is good as well. See, I'm cheap. It's more expensive than vermiculite.
What's in the plastic bag right now?
The one I'm going to put it into. Yeah, this is the mixture of peat moss and vermiculite.
Then you're gonna put that in.
And now, all right. So here's what I do then. So I want to coat the bottom of the new bag, and then I just lay tubers inside. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. And once I get all my tubers in there, I already know what the bag number is, already marked it on there. So then I come back in and just cover them.
Now,
Good.
first you talk to them very sternly and say, I want you all to have eyes and grow away.
You grow that. Yes, I do. You
Okay.
speak to them sternly.
Yeah.
And then I also, just to prove how cheap I am, I shop at Aldi.
Yeah.
And these boxes are like Apple boxes, whatever, that you can just pick up at Aldi. They're trying to get rid of them anyway. And these become my storage units. And in fact, they have all these box tops come from Aldi. And if you want to, I mean, it sounds weird, but you can kind of feel the coolness and the dampness of it. It's not wet, it's just damp. And in fact, it has a little leak in the hole in the bottom, I think.
And then these are gonna go in there.
They will, although I think, no, I already have this one in there. So these are gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, there's something in there right now.
Yeah, I put in 2 or 3 tubers.
No, I couldn't feel on that.
Do you
Hard to
moisten
tell.
the,
No, here's one, 2 or 3 tubers.
do
What?
you moisten the peat moss and vermiculite?
I do, mainly because this peat moss was from last year, actually, it's stored in the garage, and it dried out over the summer. So what I end up doing is I put them in the big plastic tubs with a little shovel, and throw in peat moss, throw in a pitcher of water, and stir it around about a week before I start using it.
Well, where do you put the sulfur dust? You do that and then you put it in the peat moss?
Yes,
Okay.
sulfur dust.
That's the first step.
Right after I get through with their second washing, after I cut them, second washing, put them into the sulfur, and then do it by variety. And then I put that variety into its bag and mark it and put it on my list.
Now, before you put into the sulfur,
Yeah,
are they dry to the touch? Are they little?
yeah, well,
My,
they are kind of, except I've re-wet them out even after. But
you don't want it to dry
I let the skin dry for a day before I do that.
okay,
Then I come in and cut and wash,
yeah,
and then sprinkle them into the sulfur dust and put them away for storage.
okay. And I have a question, where you cut that one, how much crown do you try to leave?
All of it. I mean,
All of it?
because
Okay,
this, I don't know, let me see if I can find, I don't know where that one is that I passed around. That one had a fairly visible crown area and a very, and
You might differentiate them, the stem versus the crown. Because the stem is what holds the moisture in the box.
oh, okay,
and again, this is the body, the neck is what attaches the body to the crown, and then the crown itself. The crown itself is literally the part of the stock. That's why the stock can be hard to get into too, which is why you need a lot of times a scissor like this where you can plunge in and make the cut.
okay.
Where did you
Is that from the garden store or?
I ordered these online, but I'm sure Suburban or whatever, they have, I know I bought these at Suburban, and I was shocked. It was the only thing in Suburban. I thought it was a good price. It was only like $5.
There's a link on the website. It's called Resources We Like. And there's a link to that model of scissor.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Ron, what is your, didn't we wrap them up and some wrap them up?
Coming up,
Okay.
she's gonna show you how, that's a different way to do it. And in fact, I do that with some of mine too. If it's a very small number of tubers, instead of having a whole sack or whatever, I just wrap and saran wrap and store them in the refrigerator until spring.
That's what we did with that ladies.
When we were helping Cap Smith, yeah.
Yeah. That's different.
Do you have some of those left?
I don't know what they are. I mean, I mixed them up. I lost
Sure.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they did okay, some of them. But it was a different method, right?
Why would you store those in the refrigerator instead of like this? Like these?
I don't know if I know the answer to that. I have in my basement, I've got one storeroom that doesn't have any heat to it. And so and if I put a thermometer in there, well, I have the Dahlias in there, and it gets down to 50, 55, which is 50 is kind of a nice number. I've always heard this, that the combination between temperature and humidity in the room, you want it to be a total of 100. So 50%, 50 degrees, 50%, 100 total, under 100 is better. And you're gonna talk about this saran wrap. I never really thought about that. Why do I put it in the refrigerator?
I
That's
think that you're just putting them down to the refrigerator temperature and just keeping a hold on it. What I found in my setup is I didn't have the ideal basement condition. So once I learned that plastic wrap method, and Jim Cook is the one who presented it to us initially. Once I learned it, I had better success. But getting that temperature and humidity level is kind of a balancing act.
If the wrap is fan wrap, I think not milk, of course, for the season.
well, for one thing,
Yeah.
Marjorie will go through that too.
You
But
want it completely.
none of them touch another tube. You wrap them each separately, but you can do that in one chunk. She'll show that. One last one I'll leave it. This is again pure nerdy. This was the label, and I use this ID tag all the way through the process, so I know what's what in each individual box. This was actually attached. I use tomato cages to support my dahlias. You got, as you know, when you're growing dahlias, they'll fall over. They're just so heavy. I use tomato cages and just attach this with wire, this tag onto the name onto that tomato cage, and so I know what it is. All this really is my neighbor was throwing out 2-inch blinds, vinyl blinds, and I grabbed those, and I must have 200 of these, and drill a hole in it, and this name tag on here was put on there last spring with whatever you gave me, whatever that permanent pin is.
I have some with me.
Okay, cool. All right, so she's going to talk about that too. But then this just flows with the Dahlia tuber through the entire process, so I keep track of what's what. And the neighbors probably think I'm pretty weird because in the spring when I put Dahlias out at first, and I put the tomato cages out right with a new planting, so I don't have to do it later. There's 75 tomato cages in my backyard with white tags on them, and one of the neighbors came over and said, "How many tomatoes do you grow?" So, well, unfortunately, none. But
Do you put the tomato pages going the right way, or do you put them so that it's about hanging?
I've seen both. I do it the normal way, the expansion up. But yeah, I've seen it where you flip it where the top rung is you have to. But even the tomato cages, as big as some of these, I had some that were probably 6 to 7 feet tall, and a good wind and some rain on top of that with the big bloom, it'll knock them right over. So what I do is I even support the tomato cages. I I have again, back to nerd. I used a 2x2 piece of wood with I sharpened the bottom edges so I can pound it in. So there's 2x2. It's stuck in the ground or 8 or 10 inches, and then I have the tomato cages going up the side of that, and the last rung I put over the wood, the 2-inch wood, and so I don't really have to even attach them. Whatever, they just kind of support themselves. And with that 2-inch stake in there, it's not going anywhere. I should write a book on nerd. Yes, Doug.
That's a quick question, because it's hard to see you back here. These are all ready to put in the garage or wherever you're gonna put them.
Yes.
You put them in the garage, leave them there,
Yes.
and wait till spring, right?
And then the next, I mean, yeah, and this one, I probably get 5 or 6 or 7 of these bags in here. They just keep stacking them, stacking them in. And then what I like about it too, though, in a big box like this, is as I'm putting them in my colder room, I can put one on the floor and then zigzag them going up. So in one stack, I can have 200.
Last year, we put them in bags.
Yes.
And, instead of like that,
But however you can do it, let you do it. You need something in there to keep the moisture control. So the vermiculite and the peat moss will help you do that too in the bag. I think my time is up. Marjorie's gonna. Look. And, by the way, it doesn't have to be up. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'll be glad to stay.
So do you fasten the bags at all?
No.
Nothing. You leave them
No,
open?
I want the airflow. That's why I would never use something like this. So you
the-
steal it
yeah,
because
okay.
it probably would hurt it.
Okay.
It'd probably rot.
And that makes it easy for you to inspect them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Everybody sign in. And who's 10? Thank you very much.
And what I will probably do then on this list too, is then I will put 1/1/24. I'll come through all the way through and try to figure out how many of them are still viable. How many of them do I have to throw away? And the number will start going down.
Okay.
Question that doesn't have to do with planting, but you said you had values of 7 or 8 feet.
Yes.
Many of mine tall. Is that a result of watering too much during the early stages, so that before they start blooming, they get great height? Or what?
I think it's just almost like it's just how one particular species, one particular cultivar reacts and what's in their DNA. And there's lots of them I call border dahlias that are just this tall, but have tremendous number of blooms on them, are very cool dahlias. But the 7 foot taller, that's just the way they are. I had one this year called Mucky that is a cousin of someone called Emery Fall. And both of those I have one largest in the show that we have every fall. And
Are they bigger than your head?
I have a picture of me what a nerd I am. Picture of me holding one right next to
I love it. Yeah.
And it was about the size of my head,
Yeah.
which is something.
Yeah. That's it.
The tall values can be multi-fact for them. Some of the ones that just grow tall. The other one, if you have too much nitrogen, then nitrogen makes the plant get tall and doesn't flower. And the other, the third thing that I can do is sunlight. You're not getting much sunlight, but it's reaching to the sun.
You very long.
Only a herbalist.
I will ask Ron and Mike to help me after we do a little demo. I thought what we could do with the people is maybe divide in 2 groups. And we'll have one group over here. Well, we could actually use those tables and you could help them, you can show them up close, cutting these and wrapping them. So I'll cut a few just to have them for demo purpose. And then you actually can take some a wrap tuber home. Okay, so I will, my scissors are a little bit different than Ron's. I like this better.
Lots of leverage in it, just a little piece.
Yeah, and this I use, these are Fiskars. And these are Falco pruners. So these, when it gets really hard, and it does on the stalk, I put these up. I cut these this week, so you can tell that it's a lot harder and it's not as fresh as Ron's. And so I'm using the pruners to get through and down to the crown. And sometimes you'll lose tubers just trying to get them divided.
So you cut fairly vertically down through the
I
stalk.
try to look so I'm not cutting between, cutting the crown off and, between tubers. But what I do is I look, and before I brought these in, is if there's any broken necks or if there's any skinny necked tubers like this, well, I take this apart so it's easier to see. Can you see, and can this guy see? I don't believe that this would ever develop. It doesn't really have a body.
Okay. So you just snip that off as close
Snip it
as you
off.
can?
Yes,
Okay.
just snip it off. This appears to be a broken neck. It's pretty
Oh, okay.
loose, so I won't keep that. This is pretty iffy. What do you think, Mike or Ron, on this guy?
I say, if in doubt, cut it.
Okay.
I've learned over the years to become brutal on those things. I know you're wasting your space and time on,
Yeah, okay,
on hoping they'll grow.
right. Okay, so here, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, does the size of the tuber indicate the size of the plant?
No, I've got some tubers that are this big and plant was just enormous.
And same with the bloom itself.
Well, the blue is going to be by variety more than any other factor.
So I'm dividing, and Ron, would you do me a favor? And while I'm doing this, would you mind dividing these? Thank you. Here's, well, you don't want to use your plans.
I'll grab some.
Okay. And like Ron said, I usually don't sterilize my tools. I know I should.
What do you use to sterilize them?
I have been using Lysol. A lot of people do bleach. They recommend bleach, but I don't want to ruin all my stuff.
Yeah.
So I figured if Lysol can take, 100% of the viruses, it hopefully will work for me. So, and you can dip your clump in the bleach or the solution that you're using. There's also a solution that the Dahlia Society has out that will kill viruses, but it's rather expensive, and it's like a veterinarian type sterilization.
So that piece you cut off, was that a bit of stock that was just kind of
Yes,
sticking up?
and
Okay.
this will rot. These
Okay.
parts will rot. So that's why I'm taking them down. Here, I'm hoping that is an eye,
Okay.
and I will take this part
So you're trimming off that part
where the stalk
will
was.
stop because that
Yes.
would really
Yeah,
pretty
that's,
moist. Okay.
yeah, it's moist and it isn't part of the growth point.
Okay.
So the crown is the growth point. So I don't take it, So there's one. Yeah.
Yes.
And this one, I sort of mangled up this tuber. It's not going to do anything. And you learn more from your mistakes than your successes. So seeing my mistakes. Usually there's a mother tuber, and sometimes you can tell it because the writing's still on the tuber.
Oh.
Like this right here. Bought Swan Island on there, and you see that last year's too. The mother people always look at the picture and kind of, this particular one, you lose them for group business. So.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Yes.
Which one was it?
It falls right there. No, typically, they will grow again, but if you do cuttings off of it, which a lot of people do, at that point, that tube is probably shot because they get 6 or 8 tubers cuttings off of a plant.
Yeah, and this guy be kind of suspect on it.
got a crack in there.
there's a
Yeah.
crack and, yeah. Oftentimes I don't try to plant I usually don't plant the mother tuber. I feel like it's not serving the purpose. But if there's only 2 tubers, one of them's the mother, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going back in here. And some of these are very, very thin again. And the variety that this is Red Runner. It's a beautiful plant, beautiful flowers that I think you'll like. Red Runner. And Ron is taking, do you see my tag on that one, Ron?
I did, it's down in the bag.
Okay. So this will be what you'll be taking home.
So every year you're dividing your bunch of tubers out. To
Yes.
get more flowers.
Yes, we're getting, what we do is in the spring, we have a sale and it's tubers or plants from cuttings. And so I don't need, 15, however many tubers is in there that Ron's cut up for us. I don't need that many of that variety. So we bring our extras to the sale. And that's what we populate our sale with, is the leftovers.
Telling me apart, you can't really see eyes yet.
You sort of can. They're like a freckle or they're easier to see in the spring. And I had to get my plants out very early. I pulled mine out.
So here's one I just got.
Yeah.
There's the,
With the white dot in there right now. This is good. Yep.
So I'm continuing on. Ron had mentioned, or we might want to pass this around. This is from Germany, but you can get it on Amazon. And this will I use on my tags, and that will hold up in the sunlight. So this tag is, did you learn a year old? Many of my tags are 3 or 4 years old. So we got 1, 2. And very questionable, but we'll keep it. No. So from this tuber, I think I'm going to get maybe, and sometimes I will keep through, like these skinny ones, whoops, might have a,
It's the brain. Oh, it's not that one, 2, if you want it.
and it's good for your other, garden needs too. Yeah, so sometimes I will leave 2 or 3 together like that with hopes that one of them will grow.
Marjorie, is this a leaded in it or is it more liquid?
This is a felt.
So,
It's felt tip. Here it is.
my first-
And we'll use it to write our names on our tubers today. Yeah.
The other one is called
Conductors. Yeah, and I have those.
Which one do you like better?
For the tag, I like this because it holds up in the sun. And I've tried pencil and it rubs off. And I've tried other permanent markers and they're not permanent in the sun. This is the only one. Thank you, Ron. Okay, so what I would do with this little set is the saran wrap that I use has been discontinued by Costco. But I get this on Amazon. And it has to be in this box. This is the stickiest. I guess there's this cling type of saran wrap that might work too. But what I do is, and I would dip these in sulfur. I kind of developed an allergy and I'm experimenting this year to see what happens.
Actually, it was, some people have talked about, to keep black spot off erosion, use fungicide, some people use that fungicide instead of sulfur, but.
Yeah, that's what I will try that because I want to, but I got so sick last year, getting respiratory stuff from the sulfur. So can you see this? So I wrap and I don't want, you want to pinch and put your next tuber in.
So you're pretty airtight,
Yes, it's airtight. Yes.
and that's after you did it.
Yeah, you want this to be fully wrapped. And then we'll go to the next one. I did not because I become sick with the sulfur. Just a personal issue.
The sulfur and.
Yes, typically I did. Last year I did. But then I remember how the allergies kicked in with it, so I discontinued doing it this year. And it's experiment. Everything's an experiment with that.
And you're putting the necks all together.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I just want them where they fit. Like this would fit really
So you'll
well.
alternate them like that. If
Yeah,
they
this
fit
will
better.
fit really well right there, and it's not touching another tuber, so that'll make the staff better. Okay, so I wrap, and this I can see the eye.
So you think by not keeping it moist, it doesn't make any difference when you use that technique?
Right, because everything is individually wrapped and it's maintained at a stable temperature. It's like it's, I don't know, held in suspense, I guess. I don't know how it's, it's like your lettuce would be totally wrapped and maybe it would last a lot longer.
But use yeast as a starter, but keep it in the refrigerator because it keeps it stable.
Yes, yeah, and this has worked. I until I did this method, I wasn't successful because of the, plus I'm kind of a lazy gardener, so I'm not, I wasn't really doing my due diligence with that. It's this stretch type wrap, and it is, you could use cling wrap. I'm wrapping, if you want to come up here, I'll do another wrap for you.
And do you get the 50% return? Like,
I get about 80 to 90. Jim Cook does a lot of tubers, and I think he had a great success too. There's an article, and I'll put a link out in our email. If you're a member, you'll be getting the email. But some people have 90% success with this. Typically, where my success failed is because I didn't have the eye to begin with in there. I typically do not have problems with molding because it's, so this, I'm going to take off this.
And this is the refrigerator.
Yes, this is the refrigerator method. I think it is around 40. Normal temp, this normal refrigerator. Okay, so I have these ends where everybody's sealed away. And then I take this, and this is going to be wrapped individually. So you don't want the ends to come out. You'll want everything to be sealed.
No vermiculite?
No vermiculite. No.
Cinnamon, no, nothing.
I tried cinnamon one year. And it didn't make that much of a difference.
Didn't make any difference with us either.
Yeah.
Should it smell good though?
Yeah, it smells
So
good.
there you go.
It smells good. Yeah, but then you put that in the refrigerator?
Yeah, what I do is so this was from our friend Marlene. And she uses plastic knives. So that's the tag. And I leave it with the name out. And oftentimes if you hand me the masking tape, I will take the masking tape. And sometimes just to be sure that it's not going to come unwrapped when I'm messing around, I just tape it. And sometimes I'll write the name on the masking tape. If you have a whole bunch of tubers, you might end up with two stacks like that. So I would have the name on the masking tape for that bunch.
The beauty of this seems to be that if you have fungus or some damping off, it doesn't contaminate, does it?
Right, yes.
The downside of it is that you may have some, fungus because it is in the refrigerator and you have difficulty. I mean, you don't unwrap it until you're ready to buy it.
Right, right.
So,
You can, sometimes if you would look at them, you may see it, but typically they come out pretty much like this.
So fast forward springtime, and you open this up, you're gonna see some, you're gonna see some eyes,
It will look pretty much like it looks right here.
and then you just,
And then I put them in a tray, you know, to eye up. And you can see the eyes when you put them in the tray in the spring, like, and then it will start to plant. And sometimes,
but not in the tray, I mean in dirt on the tray.
and yeah,
Okay.
in a medium, it could be, you know, peat moss, vermiculite, potting soil, but yeah, that's what I would.
Do you cover them much or not really? Just kind of put them on top of that mixture?
When I start in the spring,
Uh-huh.
yes, I cover them a little bit.
But a little, not a
Oh,
huge amount?
Not a huge.
Okay.
eyes, but no shoots. You don't get any shoots in the refrigerator.
No, you won't get shoots in the refrigerator,
Because in the
not until you pull them out.
other method, you may have shoots in the
What makes it grow is it's temperature.
Right.
So if you're until you get to bring them out, right? Not a big one, so yeah, you could. Like, it's just different sheets though. You can cut a sheet off, because you don't want that, that's like a walk on a tree or one of those things. You can cut that off just above the eye or whatever. They'll grow back strong.
Mike, when do you move yours from cold to heat?
It just varies, depending on when I want to start working on it, but usually first part of March, then start some of them. And then go in a 2-week cycle.
And then, but we have one other factor in there too, since we had a sale at the end of May. We had trying to shoot for some of the things we good and growing.
Right.
Okay, so this is a tip from Mike Clementi he gave us. And you can write the name
Right on the tuber. This is a conductor's pencil. And we'll have, if anybody wants a conductor's pencil, I have 3 extra. That are done. They come by dozen, but
Where did you get your, because I've got some small items before, and the lead sometimes just breaks off all the time.
these, I'm not sure, probably Amazon. And it is called silver. And you can, why don't you come up here, Mike, and write, because you,
My problem's so good.
no, because you know what, you know, here you can see I'm putting a mark.
You did something though with,
What is the-
very important with the conductors is you wet the end of it.
Yes.
And that's why, if you just cleaned your tubers, when you've washed them off, they're wet, it's really easy to write on them then. So that's really the best time. What was this one?
This is red diamond.
So she's already got,
Can you use that again? The one you were.
I don't, you maybe could, but I haven't tried it.
and a lot of times if you have a long name, you just abbreviate it and you're gonna know what it is. Like, but really the best time to do this is right after you've washed them. So you just, and it will last the whole year. It's mainly kind of a double way of keeping track of things because Marjorie's got the label on it, but sometimes I lose a label when I'm wrapping or whatever. But if you have the name written on here also, oh, that was my red diamond package. So just kind of a,
And like in Ron's, he has his tag's number, so he could just use a number on.
Unless someone took your notepad and then what would you do? Oh, you really?
He's got his tag's number.
Blue flat values.
Organized. I'm so disorganized. Okay, so I thought what we would do is we'll take these, and this is red diamond. And we'll go over, why don't we go in 2 groups, and go over there, and we'll put some saran wrap down, And you guys can work among yourselves who gets to take the tube one. You do have to have space in the refrigerator, but you can see I can put a shoebox full of a whole lot of tubers, and typically that's about what I use.
I think I put, you put that in there, you put it in the shoebox.
I put them in I put them in a plastic container, and I do, put the lid on it. I think, you don't need to on the lid, but I just, like you would a piece of food.
Do you keep fruit in the main fridge?
No.
Okay.
I keep Diet Coke and extra food, but no, I don't have anything else in there. That's really been, nothing that. I think apples could with that ethylene or whatever it is, yeah. So let's go over, and if you don't mind taking part of the tubers, Mike, and they can, if you don't mind,
And shape quite separate well, maybe somebody can see that wasn't actual side, and that's a hard separator.
and maybe you could do that.
Yeah.
I made a mess. So I'm gonna go over and lay down your ceramic.
We had a couple questions.
Okay.
One person asked about sterilizing tools again. You could mention that. And then Hannah, I think, just asked if she's got a garage above freezing, can she use Saran method there?
Well, the only thing that we heard is you can have 70-degree days in January. Your garage will probably be almost too warm for that. On the other hand, the garage is probably, a lot of people store their tubers in the garage for the winter and normal. And the garage can freeze too, so you gotta be very cognizant of the temperature of the forecast. Because if you're in the garage and it's gonna really freeze, you better bring them inside for the night.
Yeah, I think that the trick on these might be that this temperature is stable. And that fluctuation in temperature might be what's
Yeah.
work. One person, where you do have the garage, my garage will freeze, and some people have put them in styrofoam.
Oh, for a little ventilation.
And don't put them on the floor.
Yeah.
So I would go here.
Rat tails and their hair.
I think also gonna show, my product. So mine's what I use.
Mine's just.
Margarine,
I think it's the same brand.
one other thing I like, if you have a clump like this and you don't want to divide them, you can just put it in, and I use pots, and I'll just put this in a pot. And then in the spring, there's the eye, and then I'll cut them out.
When you say a pot, do you have any medium in the pot?
Yes,
Okay.
just like with the sphagnum moss.
Okay.
That's the real key,
Yes.
is so they don't dry out, because they will look like cream.
Do you mist it all?
That's great.
Or still it dry?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
watch it and I'll miss it.
Okay.
Exactly.
I don't know, never done it.
Online are sharing everything, so Mike going to explain, and Mike's going to explain, and also.
Yeah.
And then, well, I'm doing that, and.
I've tried that. You're likely to lose tubers.
But just imagine this is a great big tuber, a group of tubers, almost like bananas or whatever. And you're not going to do in the plastic sacks, you're going to put it in a pot. So that I just pick where I can get in to divide it.
Okay.
But the important part when you're dividing it is to make sure you have part of this crown part. And here was the stem. And you can see the stem kind of rots in places, and the stem tends to really hold the moisture. So you'll cut the stem down pretty close to the crown.
Yeah.
Usually they'll say 1/4 of an inch and even a half. But imagine this was a whole bunch of larger and bigger tubers. You just pick it up. And I cut them, the way I cut them on size wise is to what I'm going to put them in. Plastic sacks, it really doesn't matter. You can put your whole group of tubers in, but I put mine in pots. So now I'm cutting my group of
tubers the size to fit in the pot that I have. And this one's kind of nice. You can see, tells you right where to cut this one. You can see in between here, there's a nice cleavage point.
Did you plant that whole tuber?
Well, you could, but there's no advantage because if a tuber has one eye on it, that's all you need. Having 5 more tubers doesn't make that plant any better. In fact, it really subtracts if I have 5 plants coming up or 5 stems coming up from this, they're all going to suck the energy off.
That's how Costco sells them like that.
Well, this is how you buy them a lot of times when you buy them. You know, some of the wholesalers or retail people, they're just going to sell you one of these because they can get $10, $20 for each one of these.
Right.
But then those tend to be the growers that grow in the US. The European growers grow them more in like fingerling that has the groups. So that's the difference. So this one, this isn't wide enough to get all of them, but I'll try to get in here and cut down. Just come around and match it up. So we've got, so now we've divided into 2s. And I would not cut this anymore the way I store them. But now if you're going to do the way Marjorie stores them, you'll just look and you'll cut each one of these off so you can wrap it up.
You could wrap that clump also.
This one,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I don't give up, this eye comes up here, I'll cut it off. This talking about in the spring, put it in my medium, start to grow. I'll put this back, all of these, let's say these 4 of them that haven't eyed up yet, because sometimes it's amazing the eyes will pop up where you don't think they are. But you reach a point where, oh, there's no eye coming off that, and you just throw it away.
So then when the eye comes off, you just try to cut between.
Right. So let's say this is a nice one. We're probably going to have an eye right there. So no eyes anywhere. We're just making this up. No eyes anywhere, but there's an eye coming here. So I would come in here. So that's the one I know has an eye, so it's going to grow.
So
And
what are you gonna do with it?
Pardon?
You'll put that one back in.
And then this one that
Maybe.
the eyes haven't eyed up yet, I'll put this back in my medium
Okay.
for storage, and then I'll check it in a week or 2 weeks. Because it's amazing, they all don't eye up on the same time. But now, like this one, you see, I've cut into it. This is weak, so I get rid of that right now. Now, is it gonna, was it gonna rot? I don't know, but it had a weak neck, so I would put this back in the storage medium and just watch it. So you can keep cutting this as much as you want to for storage, if you're doing the plastic, but if you're the saran wrap, but if you're going to store them like Ron talked about that method, then I just leave them in clumps to do that. But and Ron brought up a good point. I just want to reiterate it. When you're using plastic sacks, you want air to get to these, and that's why I like pots, and my pots stack easily. But you want air to be moving around your medium, because if you close it off, just like storing vegetables in a plastic bag, they rot.
So you store things in pots.
I use pots. It just, everybody's different on what they have at home for storage. In my place, I can put them in pots, and then I put the pots in the all those plastic things the kids use in college. The book.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah, one of
Milk
those.
crate.
They're like the crates.
Yeah, the milk crates. So I'll put my pots. I can get 8 pots in a milk crate, and then I stack the crates on top of each other.
And then where does it go?
Pardon? Then I store mine in the basement. My wife would kill me if I put them in the refrigerator. But some people have extra refrigerators in, your basement or your garage, and you can use that. So,
And Mike's pots are square.
yeah, the
He
square pot.
taught me the delight of square pots.
How much medium is on top of them when they're?
Just
Interesting.
so yeah, just
Okay.
you want to make sure that the top is covered.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tend to settle that much
Okay.
to do there. But square pots will, what's the place down in River Key?
Planter seeds.
Yeah, Planter Seed Company.
You can get all different.
They have
sizes.
varieties of sizes. And then I have some smaller ones, you know, the 6-inch ones are the biggest ones, but I'll have some 4 inches because not every plant is going to give you a massive amount of tubers. You may only get this much, so to conserve space, and I'll put that in a smaller, excuse me, a smaller pot.
And that's delightful because when you're done, when you plant them in the ground, all of those store very easily, neatly and into each other.
But the caution about somebody talking about storing them in the garage, that's fine. But what was it, 5-7 years ago when we got that minus weather for a week or two, I lost every one of mine because we were out of town.
Oh.
So that's the thing about storing in the garage. So you just have to be careful, temperature wise in your garage. And then the basement can be too warm
Yeah.
and then they can tend to rot. So
Mhm.
it's just, there's no right or wrong way. It's just the right or wrong way for each individual's, the way your house is set up.
Yes, it is. We couldn't have this simple, but we do this.
I know.
buy yours.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, so we get out of here on time. I have pencils. We have the felt ones, the garden labels for your tags, and I'll be
You may
tagged
not-
here. And
You may not see the eye at this point. It's there, but it's hiding.
On for cutting them up for me.
See, this is the crown. This whole thing.
Well, just so they're.
So the eye may come up.
What we did was some was also in this.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
of those red diamonds.
But
yeah,
But
that's,
you
I
don't-
can recognize.